Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at page 47, problem C, tangent of theta equals the square root of 3. So this problem is actually kind of similar to page 42, problem C, because it involves tangent. Remember, the first thing we want to figure out when we're solving these kind of problems is, what is the definition of tangent? So, tangent, which is defined on page 34, is the y-coordinate over the x-coordinate, or the sine over cosine, since the y-coordinate corresponds to sine and the x-coordinate corresponds to cosine. So let's go ahead and write that on our page. I'm actually going to flip it over because I know I'm going to run out of space on page 47. Okay, so tangent, we said, was sine over cosine. So I'll just write it here. Tangent equals sine over cosine. Okay. Now, we know that our answer, square root of 3, is positive. So what does that tell us, and how does this help us? So if we know that tangent's value is positive, then that can happen in two ways when we're dividing two numbers. So if we divide sine over cosine, and our value is positive for tangent, then we know that either sine and cosine are both positive, because when you divide a positive number by a positive number, you get a positive number, or sine and cosine are both negative, because when you divide a negative number by a negative number, you get a positive number. Okay, so remember, when it says that tangent theta equals the square root of 3, that's just asking us at what angle is tangent equal to the square root of 3. Or in this case, since tangent is sine over cosine, it's asking us at what angle is sine divided by cosine equal to the square root of 3 at that angle. So let's look at the unit circle. We know we're in two cases, either sine and cosine are both positive or sine and cosine are both negative. Let's go ahead and look at this case first, the case where sine and cosine are both positive. So in the unit circle, sine and cosine are both positive only in quadrant 1. Cosine is positive, and sine is positive in quadrant 1. They both are. So now we just want to figure out which one of these angles will give us the square root of 3 when we divide the y-coordinate, or sine, over the x-coordinate, or cosine. So our answer will probably have the square root of 3 in it. So this probably won't be our answer here, because it doesn't have square root of 3 in it. So we're stuck either between 30 degrees or 60 degrees, because they both have square root of 3 in it somewhere. But since we want square root of 3 to be on the top, or the numerator, since remember we can write this as square root of 3 over 1, that would put square root of 3 on the top. And since sine is on the top, we probably want sine to include the square root of 3. So remember, since our y-coordinate is our sine, this would be the case where sine is equal to a square root of 3 over 2 in this case. So I'm going to choose 60 degrees first and see if it works. So let's see. Let's divide the square root of 3 over 2, or sine, by 1/2, or cosine, and see if we get the square root of 3. So that's the square root of 3 over 2, which is what sine is at 60 degrees, divided by cosine, which is 1/2 at 60 degrees. Okay, now remember, when we're dividing a fraction, we need to change it to multiplication and take the reciprocal, or flip it. So let's rewrite it. Square root of 3 over 2 times 2 over 1. I just changed it to multiplication, and I flipped the fraction. Take the reciprocal. Okay, now when we're multiplying two fractions, we just multiply straight across. So the square root of 3 times 2 gives us 2 square root of 3 over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now notice we can simplify this because we have 2 over 2, which is just 1. And that will just leave us with the square root of 3. That's exactly what we wanted. So that tells us that at 60 degrees, when we divide sine over cosine, tangent equals the square root of 3. So that means theta, or our angle, can be 60 degrees, which is the same thing as pi over 3 radians. So there's our first answer. Since it's 60 degrees, when you divide sine by a cosine, you get the square root of 3. Now let's figure out the next case, the case where sine and cosine are both negative. But how about you pause the video right here and try to figure it out on your own first. Where on the unit circle are sine and cosine both negative, and which angle, when you divide sine by cosine, will give you the square root of 3? Okay, so let's come back. So we know that sine and cosine are both negative in quadrant 3, because in quadrant 3 cosine is negative and sine is negative. So that means our angle has to come from quadrant 3. Now again, we want sine to have the square root of 3 in it probably, and cosine to have 1/2 in it again. So are there any other coordinates over here that look kind of like this one? Let's see. So sine, yeah, square root of 3 over 2 right here, and cosine is 1/2 right here. So that should work. And they're both negative. And when you divide a negative by negative, we should get positive square root of 3. So let's try it. So we have sine is negative square root of 3 over 2, divided by cosine, which is negative 1/2. Okay, so now it looks pretty much like the last problem, except for negative. So again, we're going to change it to multiplication, take the reciprocal of the fraction, so negative square root of 3 over 2 times negative 2 over 1. Now remember, when we have a negative on a fraction, we can either put the negative on the top or the bottom. It doesn't really matter. But in this case, I'm going to choose to put it on the top on both of them, just to make it a little bit easier. So when we do that, we end up getting, when we multiply straight across, we get this negative square root of 3 times negative 2. Since they're both negative, a negative times a negative is a positive number. So that just gives us 2 square root of 3 over 2 times 1, which is just 2. Notice that's exactly what we got over here. 2 simplifies out, and we end up getting the square root of 3. So again, tangent is the square root of 3 at 240 degrees. So that's our other answer, which is the same thing as 4 pi over 3 radians. So that tells us our angle theta can be 240 degrees, or 4 pi over 3 radians, same thing. Perfect. So those are our two answers. So again, we just figured out that at 60 degrees and at 240 degrees, when you divide the y-coordinate over the x-coordinate, or sine over cosine, you get the square root of 3, because tangent is sine over cosine. Therefore, those two angles, tangent is equal to the square root of 3. Okay, so that's it for problem C. In the next video, I'll go over problem D on page 47. Until then, I'll see ya.